this was the big story I wanted to ask you about specifically. Anyone could imagine a hypothetical where they'd say, oh, you paid for money for a friend or a friend's family for something nice, school or whatever. That's okay, right? That doesn't have to automatically be bad. And yet something smells really fishy here enough for the DA to look at it. Why?
So this has all the hallmarks of tax fraud. $15,000 or less can be a gift in some situations, but this amount of money far exceeds that. And so prosecutors are likely looking at this situation with one of two scenarios in mind. I don't think we know which one it is at this point. It's possible that they're investigating a tax conspiracy between Trump and Weisselberg to see if that might be a potential charge. But this could also signify that prosecutors are trying to get Weisselberg to cooperate. That seemed like a likely path that Cy Vance's team has been taking, and they haven't yet convinced him to cooperate. And this might be the sort of charge against him that would push him over the edge to cooperation. So it's an important development. We just don't know for certain what it means yet.
All fair, and appreciate your careful nuance there. Adanya, I've had some of your other colleagues from SDNY, including David Kelly, who used to run the office. I've said to them what I'll say to you, which is your office is sometimes criticized for playing such hardball that it seems like you're really beating up and scaring people just so they'll cooperate, not for their underlying crime. I'm not bringing up a specific case with you, but I wonder what you think about the kind of hardball we're seeing here. Because as Joyce mentions, it looks like they're really trying to put the fear into Weisselberg and his whole family. Of course, if there was a crime, there was a crime. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think we can bring up a specific case because you just mentioned Michael Cohen, and he has publicly said that part of the reason he resolved to plead guilty is because the U.S. Attorney's Office was putting a squeeze on his family members. It is, there's plenty of precedent for that kind of arm twisting where you see the prosecutors really going in for, maximum hit by looking at family members or friends or people that the target wants to protect. And so, as Joyce said, we don't know what the angle is here, but one could certainly imagine a scenario in which, there have certainly been public reports that they're going after Weisselberg, that there are mountains of documentary evidence, we know millions of pages of it, but they really do need a guide to walk a jury through what can be very difficult, painstaking kind of testimony about these records. And so they need someone exactly like Alan Weisselberg, the so-called eyes and ears of the Trump organization. And one way to get him to flip, of course, is to apply maximum pressure, not just on him, but perhaps on his family members. And so these kinds of, tax evasions, if that's what they are, they could be a gift, as you said, as we have discussed, but also it could be, as you said early on, a fringe benefit that should be taxable that may not have been. And that's certainly one of the angles that they're going to be looking at.
And Danya, to ask the very basic question, if Mr. Weisselberg is doing pretty well, why take such a big apparent risk just to cheat on some taxes, allegedly?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion about the whole kind of modus operandi of the organization. And Mr. Weisselberg himself has taken a lot of pride in saying, trying to get every last nickel for the organization. And so this was Barry Weisselberg who testified that he made something like $200,000. I think he testified that in his divorce proceeding. And yet he lived in this multi-million-dollar apartment. His children went to, $50,000 a year plus a year school in Manhattan. And there were some other perks, according at least to Barry Weisselberg's wife. So I can't guess, Joyce and I have seen it a million times where you're surprised that that a defendant is willing to do the stupid things that they do that end up getting them in trouble when there's a clear paper trail. But again, this is some speculation, and the DA's office is certainly laboring to figure out whether this was a gift or not.
Well, and speaking of stupid things, we're about 20 minutes into the hour. We handled the Gates probe, problem for Republican congressmen there potentially, the problems for Donald Trump and his money man. We haven't even gotten to Donald Trump's other lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who's seen his home raided and has been doing legally stupid things in terms of speaking out so much. His son also speaking out, Joyce. Take a listen.
It's actually absurd when you think that the president of the United States lawyer, where they have privileged information between the two of them, that iCloud account would be hacked into by the Department of Justice is absolutely absurd. When you think about that, if that can happen to the president's attorney, that can happen to any one of us.
Joyce, the like father, like son there, echoing the idea that somehow the problem is facing the government for their tactics rather than what's being investigated. Is this a good legal strategy for Giuliani, or is this just kind of PR?
You know, if it's PR, it's bad PR, because that's the best case I've ever heard for the rule of law. It says that no one is above the law in this country, and even a former president's lawyer can be investigated. His iCloud wasn't hacked. The government had probable cause, went to a federal judge, obtained the necessary warrants to take a look both at iCloud and later to seize phones and other electronic devices. This is our legal system working the way it's intended to, making sure people are held accountable for crimes if they've committed them.
All great points on a bunch of stories. Joyce and Danya, thank you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.